just write down silly things and then use your brain to be like, how can
Mhm.
that connect? Like, how can I make that related to my niche and my topic? Because people remember stories. Welcome back to Duo On Air. I'm Abby.
And I'm Courtney.
And we're the X agency turned entrepreneurial team that puts the duo in Duo Collective. Our boutique organic marketing agency specializes in SEO, social media strategy, and branding.
We're an everyday pair of business besties / marketing experts obsessed with helping our community learn more about what it takes to run a business.
Which is why on Duo On Air, we're not holding anything back. We're giving you all the info we know about how to grow your business organically so you can be the confident CEO you were made to be.
And how to navigate life as a small business owner.
Whether it's on your own or with your best friend by your side, so grab your coffee
or your mimosa, we don't judge,
and settle in for a quick value-packed episode of Marketing Tips. Welcome back to the Duo On Air podcast. This is episode number 136, and today we are chatting with one of our favorite humans, Eden from Maven Made Copy. Eden has been working behind the scenes in our business for years, helping us with SEO and owning our blog. And she is our go-to recommendation when our clients or our students are ready to offload their blog into the hands of an expert. And we knew that we needed to bring her here on the podcast to talk about how she comes up with blog ideas, regardless of industry or niche. This is one of the biggest struggles we hear from those who have blogs. We talk all the time about this from an SEO perspective, but we wanted to get another creative angle. So let's go and jump in, meet Eden, and get you your next blog idea. Hello, Eden. Thank you so much for joining us on Duo On Air. We're so excited you're here.
Hi, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so for everyone who doesn't know, Eden is behind the scenes in our podcast all the time. So Eden works inside our business, helping to do all of the show notes and managing our blog. And we knew that we needed to have her on the blog just to really, on the podcast, to share more about that process, because blogging is something people are overwhelmed with, and we'll talk about all of that. But we kind of just wanted to dig into all the things to help make blogging easier. So that's what we're excited to talk about today. But first, I kind of want Eden, you to share a little bit about your business. Things have changed for you in the last year. So why don't you just tell us what's going on?
Yeah, so I've been in business for a couple years now, but I recently relaunched and rebranded to a completely new business model earlier this year. And I kind of made that transition because I was stagnant in my growth with my old business and my old business model. I had tried to make some changes in my business, like increasing my prices or doing new offerings and having a new personal title of like what I wanted to call myself. But I still had to have like over 10 retainer clients at one time to meet any sort of goals. And it was just completely overwhelming and not realistic. So I decided to relaunch with a new business, new offerings, new website, new branding, the whole thing. So my new business is now called Maven Made Copy, and I offer blog writing and SEO strategy.
Awesome. I think a lot of people can probably resonate with that too, like the pivots just within our business. And I think leaning into what you really like to do in addition to what actually is going to help you scale and grow. And yeah, we've pivoted our business, I don't know how many times, a lot.
Too many. Just kidding.
And there'll be too many more for sure.
Yes. But that's okay. I mean, I think that's part of the journey of just being an entrepreneur or a solopreneur is figuring out what works and what doesn't work and pivoting when you need to.
Yeah. So how's it feel after the fact, Eden? Now you're like through the rebrand and like launched and live. How's it all feel?
It feels so much better because I was also offering services that I just didn't really like doing. Like I was like, I can do it, but do I really want to do it? So after the fact, it's been so much better. And I have actual systems and processes and automation in place that I didn't have before. So all of that combined just has been a good experience.
That's awesome. Yeah,
That's
I think we
awesome,
can
yeah.
resonate with that a lot. Like, I think it's easy to say, yeah, we do marketing. We can do all the things and all the offerings, but the more you do, the less efficient and the less like processed you can be. And that actually takes away from the time and taking more clients and doing more projects and scaling your business. Like, it makes it impossible unless you're going to grow by adding people. So I think we felt that too. And that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank
Yes. I
you.
also think it like takes away your creative energy too. If you're doing things because you know you can do them, but they're not bringing you that joy that you want at the end of the day within your business, then it's something that you should definitely reevaluate, which Abby and I have done multiple times too. And we've talked about this on the podcast in the past, but it's just you can do a lot of things, sure, but should you be doing those things? Not necessarily. So it's awesome that you've found that clarity within your new brand and the services that you're offering. And it feels kind of like a whole new you when you rebrand and do stuff like that. And I love it.
Yeah, it definitely does. Thank you.
So let's talk about the big question. Now that you are just focusing on blogging and content writing, let's talk about how you come up with fresh blog ideas over and over again. And I'm sure, like, whether you want to talk about your own business or how you do it with your clients, how do you do it? Because I think this is one of the biggest struggles that people have when they have a blog is the ideation of it.
Yes, I totally get that. I know it's completely stressful when you feel like you have to put a post out there, but you just don't know what to write about. And you just feel stressed with the content creation. And I know long form content, especially, can be overwhelming because you think it's going to take like hours and hours and hours to write this. And maybe it does for some people. But it just like the whole process just feels overwhelming. So I totally get that. I struggle with that sometimes too. And that's like what I offer. So if you feel that way, like you're not alone. But how I actually come up with some ideas. So first I just start with seeing what I can brainstorm. For my clients, I'm often included in their target audience. So I think of questions that I would ask them or things that I would Google. So I kind of like look at them as the expert and me as like the student. What would I want to know from them? And I think that could apply to really anyone because you're thinking, what would I want to know as the target audience? What would I want to learn about? What would I naturally Google and, just want to see where would I go to find that inspiration? So that's kind of where I start with myself and my clients, really. I also just write down every idea that pops into my head, even if I'm in the middle of doing something else. I'll just write it down and come back to it later to see if it's an idea worth writing an entire blog about. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes I use it for social media, or sometimes I use it not at all. But just writing down those things that pop into your head is really helpful to at least have a starting place when you actually go to write a blog or to see like what kind of ideas you can come up with. If you have a list to start with, I find that really helpful, and you can kind of sort through the good ideas, the bad ideas, some things that would be better on a different platform. So that's kind of how I start.
Awesome.
I love that
Yeah.
you mentioned that you put yourself in like the consumer shoe and like, okay, if I was going to work with this service-based industry or if I was going to buy this product, what would I just naturally Google right away? Because I think a lot of people get so hung up on just like, what is this topic? What should I do? Or just like they get into the weeds of blogging, but really it could just be as simple as, okay, what would I Google? Like if I'm looking for this, simply just Google that and then find that content out there. And that can give you so many ideas for different blog posts within that space. So I think we just take ourselves out of that like consumer role. And sometimes we need to put ourselves back in there. Like we're all consumers. So what is it that we all naturally Google when we're looking for a service or a product?
Yeah. Yeah, it's flipping the script on
Mm-hmm.
what do I write about and thinking of your blog as like you are, which I get it, you're the owner, you're the writer, but it's flipping it instead of being like, what can I do for you? Because that's the whole point of the blog. It's to help people find you that don't know you yet. And you need to share the content that they're searching for. So putting on that audience hat of like who your audience is. And we always tell people like, you need to be very clear on who your audience is. You need to have like a description of who a single person could be, not just a group of people. Like the more specific you can get, the easier it's going to be to think of ideas to write content on.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to do that sometimes too, because you are the expert in whatever you're offering. And sometimes it's hard to be like, okay, what are the basics? Like if someone doesn't know anything about what I do, what would they want to know about? And sometimes you're like, that's too obvious, that's too easy, but it's really not. Like that's what your audience is coming to you for either your services or your content.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we always try to think about how, like, oh, I'm not just going to share like the lowest hanging fruit. I need to be different. I need to be unique. I need to have this blog post that's like really extravagant and like asks a question that no one even thought about. And in theory, it's like, yeah, cool. That's like you can create your uniqueness, but no one's searching for that. So it's like you need to complement that with some of the things that people are searching for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
So, do you have any, just like blogging overall, are there any tools that you really love and lean on throughout like the process of whether it's ideation or actually writing?
In terms of tools, I use Uber Suggest a lot for keyword research, and I also use Airtable to kind of organize my all those ideas that I write down during brainstorming or just the random thoughts that pop into my head. Um, those are the tools I rely on the most for blog writing. But really kind of where I start with finding topics that my audience is interested in is just listening and paying attention. Your audience will tell you what they want to know if you know where to look. So just think about like, what do they want to know about or what are they confused about? And there's a lot of places that you can look for that information. The first is social media. So what is your audience talking about? What are some common struggles or knowledge gaps that you noticed and can educate on? You can ask them using polls or quizzes or question boxes. I love doing that on Instagram. You can see what your competitors are talking about, trending topics. Another place I use a lot is I look to see if there's any social posts that have outperformed all my other ones, because it could indicate what my audience wants to know more about. So social media is a really good tool to listen to your audience. What I mentioned before, Uber suggests, so just looking at keyword research and seeing what people are actually looking for. You can also take a keyword that you find on there and type it into Google and look in the people also ask section to find subtopics for a blog or a completely new blog topic. That's a good way to see what people are looking for. And just your expertise, like you know what you're talking about. Think about your personal experiences and what are some things that you Googled when you first started your business? What were you confused about? What do you wish you knew when you first started? You've come a long way in your entrepreneurial journey and have learned a lot, I'm sure. So you could probably find some good nuggets in your wisdom and find some things to blog about with like going that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like all of these are so for anyone who's like sitting on the fence of like, oh, I'm not blogging enough, or I haven't blogged, or I don't know what to blog about, like giving them the motivation just to get started, like start sharing things. What would your recommendation be? Like, say you didn't know everything you already know about our blog. Say you just met us and we have like oodles of blog content and we're struggling. Like, okay, what else should we write about? What approach would you take for someone who has like so much content already, but then trying to figure out how to continue like those fresh ideas?
Yeah, sometimes I'll look through old blog content and see if there's anywhere that we could expand on a topic or some things that you like touch on a lot, but you don't have like a full blog about. So part of what I do for you guys is looking to see if I can internally link in any of your old posts. And sometimes I'm like, oh, that would be a really good thing to link, but we don't have any content about that. So I can't link anything. So that's kind of where I find some good content too. Like if you already have a lot, look through your old content and see where you can either update the post. That's a good thing to do too. See if you can expand on any of the topics in there. Or if you could find something that you talk about a lot, but maybe don't have anything that expands on it, that would be a good place to start.
Yeah.
That can
Yeah.
be
I've
like the
had,
biggest struggle with us, particularly because we do have so many that it's like, okay, well, we've reached our max. What else do we talk about? So I love that it's just looking at old posts and how you can expand on those more, because sometimes we do touch just the very surface of, different topics throughout our business, but we don't get into the weeds of it. So it's taking those and adding on to them or updating them so that they perform a little bit better. But I think sometimes Abby and I both get into this phase where we're like, okay, what do we talk about now? Because we've already talked about this once or twice. So I think just expanding on those is super important too, and just going back and looking at those old posts.
yeah. Yeah, I think, and for the record too, I don't feel like, I think once you get in a groove, like you don't ever, there's an infinite amount of ideas out there. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is never ending. There's so many things you can talk about. It's just understanding where to start. One thing that's really helped us, so if you're someone that's out there that maybe you have like a really old piece, like you have a blog that you just haven't been keeping up with and it's a lot of old content, like Eden said, like update, because that having good quality content is what matters and fresh content matters. So any content you have, like people who tell me they like come to us and they're like, I just have so much blog content, but it just hasn't been touched in years and I should just start over. I'm like, don't start over. Like you have a great, like you have something that that not a lot of people are seeing, that now we can mix it up and like people can see it. Like it's just not indexed or people don't know about it. Um, so I think like there's so many opportunities. And one of the things we've been doing, which as you were talking, Eden, it like made me think of how this could be a really good tool for someone else. We've been taking, so every Friday we share an SEO squeeze is what we call it. And it's one thing to do to better your SEO. We're on like, I don't know, number 30. Like we've been doing it for a while now. So there's quite a few of them. And I like started writing tips in that, and now we've archived them in Substack. And we do have an episode on Substack. So if you search for that, you can hear all about what Substack is. But we now archive them. So I don't want to repeat tips, right? Even if someone joins our weekly email list like today. So it's something where I'm always having to come up with fresh content ideas. So we actually created a spreadsheet with the tip just all laid out in like individual lines. So all the tips are there. I don't need to dig back through like, searching in your blog or searching in your emails or looking in Flowdesk. Like it's so hard to search back for things when you have so much content. So just listing out the quick tip has been really helpful, because then I'll take that list and I'll submit it to like ChatGPT or Gemini and say, hey, what am I missing? And that kind of starts like regenerating new ideas of other simple tips I haven't thought of. And I think that same approach, if you're struggling with how to create different, unique content, can be used for blogging as well.
Yeah, that's a good point of repurposing content too, because even all those 30 emails that you've sent could be made into a listicle blog post. Like there's so many ways that you can repurpose content if you just look to see what you already have. Like we were saying, it's hard to come up with new ideas when you feel like you're tapped out. But if you just look at what you've already done, it might spark another idea or see how you can use it in a different way.
Yeah, genius. Okay, let's add that to the list, Eden. 30
Perfect. I'm already on it.
quick things you can do for SEO, like little bullet points out, because we know people like listicles, right? That's awesome.
And then you
She's
can
over there
update
taking
it.
notes.
Yeah. And then you can update it every single week, update the blog with the new tip.
And
It's
I think
Oh,
like,
genius.
right, it is genius. I think that this, like what we're doing right now, like obviously we're on a podcast, we're sharing education, but at the same time, it's like a little mix of like brainstorming too. If you are stuck, like do this with a friend, because I think the more you talk about ideas and you get someone else in the room with you, the more they can help you be like, you should write a blog on that, or like, have you thought about this? And you can bounce ideas off of each other and do like, make it fun, like do it over coffee, or like grab a cocktail, even if they live in a different state, jump on Zoom, make a cocktail together and like brainstorm some ideas, because that can be something that like one gets you excited and like re-excited about writing blogs for your business. And two, it's like something out of the norm. Like we built a business, and entrepreneurship is meant to be this like flexible, out of the norm thing. So do more out of the norm things like that, because that will like regenerate some excitement in your business.
I think that goes back to the point too of like you're so in it, you're so in your business that it's hard to think of ideas and content to write for yourself because you're in it and you're kind of writing for yourself, but you're also writing for your audience. So I think if you pulled in a friend or a family member, they might give you ideas that you never even thought of because they're not in it 24/7. So it's not only fun, but it could be super beneficial too because you're getting it from a different lens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my family is like, I have no idea what you do. And I'm like, perfect. Ask me all the questions.
This is great.
Yeah.
Right. That's how everyone feels when they're trying to
Yeah.
describe their job.
Right.
So for anyone who's kind of looking for trends or like latest and greatest things out there, is like, what do you turn to? Do you have any tools that you like to use from like a trending perspective of like, how can I stay up to date on this topic within my niche?
I don't really use any tools necessarily. It kind of just goes back to listening and seeing like what your audience wants to know about. But I do listen to a lot of webinars and podcasts from experts in like SEO, especially like you guys, to kind of just stay up to date on what I should know for my clients. And then if there's any nuggets that they share in there of like, oh, that's a really good point. I haven't thought about it that way. I could write some content about that. And just kind of like seeing how I can educate my audience in different ways. That's kind of the approach that I take.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what you said before, listening is like so important. You need to be present, like in where your audience is present. So if your audience isn't on Instagram, fine. Like if your audience is on LinkedIn, then be on LinkedIn. Like you should be where your audience is. And we're not saying everywhere, but pick that one spot that you think they are most and live there. There's two other things that I tend to get a lot of ideas from, whether it's like blog or content. It's just like content ideas overall, I'd say. One is Exploding Topics. So that's like you can subscribe to their email list. You don't have to pay for it. They do have a pro plan. It seems like the pro plan would be great, but also like I'm not going to pay for one more thing. Free plan works just fine. And they send emails like every Tuesday with the latest trends related to your niche. So it's interesting because you see it from a keyword perspective. What keywords are trending now that hasn't been before? And then I also really love the brew, like the email, the brew. That email list is like phenomenal. It gives you, I mean, I look at it just for regular life because it's like so many different things in there about what's happening. But like just this morning, I was looking at it and the subject line said something about like Google's backlash. And I'm like, well, obviously I have to read that, you know, it's about Google. So it was all about the backlash of like the Olympics, Google commercial and how people are mad that they were asking Gemini to write a letter for their daughter. It's like way to take all the creativity out of your daughter being able to write a letter to their hero. Like people are upset about it. So that is like a great thing where you can then flip the switch on like how to like for us, right? Because we're in marketing, like this is very different if you're in a different niche in a different industry, but we can take a piece of content like that and talk about how you can use AI to help make like these tasks easier without taking away personalization. Like that's something that people are really hot on right now. So I think even like real life things that are happening, it's like putting on that hat, like you even said with the notebook, like having something by you or Airtable, whatever it is, and writing down those ideas. Like, should we talk about what happened at the coffee shop the other day?
Oh
You were
my
like, is
gosh,
that a content idea?
that was so funny. I came home and told my husband, and he's like, and you were just like, yeah, have a great day. Yeah, I mean, go ahead and tell the story.
So we went to a coffee shop to go work and we were sitting there working. This guy runs over. He's not wearing any shoes. He's barefoot, just ran across a field to the coffee shop. Like we're sitting outside on their patio and they have a ton of wood stacked up on the side. And so he runs over. He has like a towel. He lays the towel down. He starts putting wood on it. And I'm looking at him like, what on earth is going on? Like, is he stealing their wood? And so then he like bundles it all up, throws it over his shoulder, and then looks at us and he goes, "Have a great day, ladies." And I was so confused. And Courtney just goes, "Oh, thank you. You too."
Okay, but in my defense, my back was to him like the majority of the time. So when I saw him come to the wood, I thought he was a worker. Like I thought he was going to bring it somewhere and like set it up nicely or whatever. And then Abby, as soon as I'm like, "Yeah, you too. Thank you." Abby's like, "I think he's stealing their wood." And I look back and here he is running through the grass, no
Running.
shoes, running through the grass, no shoes. And I looked at Abby and I'm like, "Oh my God, he is stealing." And then I looked at her and I'm like, "Is this a good content piece? Like, is this a good email newsletter? Because this is hilarious."
So then we're sitting there like, which I think like creating stories and things like that, like, just think about things throughout your day, write it down. Like the other day, I mean, we just did an email recently to our list about s'mores. I don't know what we were talking about, but I was like, "Ooh, there's got to be something with SEO and s'mores." And I like literally wrote that down and turned it into an idea. So this goes beyond like just finding like a topic to blog about, but it's also just like content ideas overall. Like just write down silly things and then use your brain to be like, how can
Mhm.
that connect? Like, how can I make that related to my niche and my topic? Because people remember stories and you can use that story in your email and then take that to your blog and like use it 5,000 different times. But I think that's a good idea.
I think people can write stories better than they can write like just super educational in-depth content, right? Like if you have a story you can relate it back to, people are so much better at storytelling than they are at like, okay, well, I have to educate on this. So here's the facts, one, two, three. That's blah. That's not what people want, right? They want that story. So I think if you flip that script and say that you're writing a story for your audience every time, it's going to be easier and more fun to create those blogs.
Mhm.
Yeah, storytelling is a huge like way to connect with your audience, and it's such a good tactic to keep people engaged and just build that trust with people because they're like, "Oh my gosh, I've seen someone steal something too." That made me
Yeah.
think like I saw someone steal money out of the fountain outside of Caesar's Palace in Vegas, and I'm just like, "What is happening?" Like so that's just like
Oh
super random
man.
things that people can relate to.
Right.
Mhm.
And the
Yep.
second you relate that to an educational topic, like I know there's magic in creating that story for sure. And it can feel really hard at first, but the more you do it, the easier it's going to be. But once you can create the magic of the storytelling and the education, people are going to remember the education because they'll remember the story. And those
Mhm.
two things being linked together is so important. And like on that note, I think that's where AI can't jump in. Like AI can help you generate ideas or help you list out the facts that also need to be there. But when it comes to like your own personality and your brands, like AI can't do that.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, don't even get
So,
me started on copying
yeah.
and pasting from AI.
Oh, right. Okay, let's talk about that for a second.
Yes.
So, everyone is honestly like really scared of AI. I cannot tell you the amount of times we've given a client a blog outline and then they've came back and said, "Well, if I use AI to write this, isn't AI going to know and aren't they going to ding me?" Like everyone is so scared about that, which the short answer is no. But I would love to know, Eden, what is your opinion on using AI when it comes to blog writing?
Yeah, I would just like to say first off that I was that person who was scared of AI. Like when it first launched, I was like, "I'm never using this. This is scary. It's going to take my job." Like the classic, what everyone was
Mhm.
thinking right when it launched. Like I was that person. I was really resistant to using it. But I realized that I don't have to use it in the way that I thought everyone else was. Like there definitely are people who copy and paste from AI, and it's just wrong to do that. Um, and I thought that's how I had to use it, but I realized, I guess, not this bright idea, but that I don't have to use it that way. And I can just use it how I think is ethical and how I think it's okay to use for my clients. So how I use it is mostly for, I do use it sometimes to think of topics. Like if I have kind of an idea, I'm like, how can I ask ChatGPT, how can I expand on this? Or are there other ideas related to what I'm thinking? So thinking of topics, I use it sometimes for outlining blogs. because it gives me a different perspective of things that I might not have thought to talk about related to that topic. So that helps me. Also, just like researching blogs, sometimes I'll ask it questions of like, how can I expand on this? Or like, what does this mean? Or how can I better explain this sentence that I wrote? Like something like that. So using it more as like an assistant versus it's writing this entire thing for me and doing all of the work. So I do think it's fine to use AI to assist in your blog writing, but never rely on it completely for your blog content.
Agreed. Yeah. It's like we always say AI is your intern. And would you have your intern write something without you, like just straight copy paste, put it out into the world for your business? Probably not. Like, so why would you have this tool do that? So yeah, I think rewriting is great. Like I've written things a number of times that I've been like, that sounds like crap. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like rewrite this for me in a way that makes more sense, or rewrite this for me so that it's more friendly, rewrite it so it's more punchy, or, you know, like, if you have
Or
like a
like make it
sarcastic voice. Yeah.
yeah, or make it like shorter. Or sometimes I find that like I get
Yeah.
lengthy and I'm like, oh, okay, this could pare down. Like help me make this
Mhm.
shorter or something like that.
Yeah. And I do love using Gemini when it comes to fact-based content because it helps source the articles. So when you ask Gemini questions, you can actually say like, please source the facts, and it will source the articles. You can click on them, make sure that they're like, again, still double check the work, make sure it's relevant, make sure it's not a post from like, you know, 1990. Like that's kind of how you should be using it. So yeah, but I agree. I think AI can be very helpful. It can be a tool to help you brainstorm. But personally, I like the whole like cocktail brainstorm session way better than maybe AI. So
Me too. It's
Yes,
way more
I
fun.
agree. I agree.
agreed. So on that note, what do you think the future of blogging is going to be? Like AI is obviously still very fresh, new. There's a lot of people still resistant to it, but it's not going anywhere. It's only going to advance and evolve and become more integrated into our lives, whether you like it or not. Sorry for all of you that are stressed about it. But what do you think what do you think that's going to make of like the future of blogging?
Yeah, I relate to those fears, but I mean, everything that I'm seeing is saying that blogging is not going anywhere. It's still a competitive space, but it does remain the best way to improve your search rankings because you're publishing that new content and showing Google that you are an expert in your industry and what you're talking about. So as long as you're publishing high quality content for your audience, it's still a worthwhile marketing strategy for your business. And I think it'll help any industry, any business, small, large, solopreneur, or a giant agency. Like I think it'll help any business with their SEO goals and website traffic. So I think it's still a good strategy to implement. And then what we were talking about earlier too, even if you use blogging as like a repurposing strategy, like you can use it for so many other pieces of content. So maybe if blogging isn't your main strategy, it could assist with other things like emails or social or freebies, or, you know, there's so many different ways to repurpose content. That's a whole other whole other topic, but it can play a big part in your overall marketing strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like email, so if you haven't, we'll link the Substack article in our blog post in the show notes so that you can see it. But that can be a really easy way in if you are like a big emailer and you haven't started blogging and you don't want to think about like that whole how to start over. That can be a really good like dip your toe in. The only thing is if you start doing things on Substack, you don't own that domain. Substack does. So you're not getting credit for it from an SEO perspective, but it can be like the gateway to getting you to start blogging. So I'd say if email is something that you're really passionate about, that could be like an easy way in just to try out Substack and getting that content actually out on the internet. But yeah, I think I agree. Like the future of blogging it's not going away. Like blogs aren't going to disappear. Gemini is not going to be the new Google. It's not going to happen. At least not for a long time. People want options. And when you use a tool like Gemini, you're given the answer. I do not see a future where people will just be okay getting an answer without being able to browse options. Like, I just don't see that future.
That takes away all our control, which we like to be in control. We like to have control of probably literally everything, just a little bit. And if you take away any of our control when it comes to searching for content online, people are going to be pissed.
Yeah. And even if I, like, as a consumer, if I'm searching for something on Google, I do read Gemini first. I read the prompted AI response that pops up at top. I read that first because sometimes it's just a quick question. Sometimes it's like something super small I just want an answer to. But there are other times where, like, I'll look at that and I'll be like, is that true? And then I'll go look at the articles to make sure that what has been summarized up top is actually accurate, because I don't trust it. Like, and I think it's going to take a long time for people to gain the trust of a tool like this. I think it will become more integrated into our lives naturally because it's going to be in every tool we use. But at the same time, we still want options. So Google search and the ability for us to search for options and answers to our questions, I don't see that going anywhere for a long time. And even if it goes away in 5 years, you know how much can happen in 5 years if you're creating content and driving traffic to your website? Like, a heck of a lot. So you might as well just tap into it now, because it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
I would be curious how many people scroll past the AI generated
immediately.
Yeah, like, because like people have sponsored posts or whatever, people tend to scroll right by those because they're like, no, like, you're paying for that, I'm going to go somewhere else. But so I'm very curious what that is with that AI generated response too.
I know, it's so new. I don't know if they'd have any studies, but
I know,
we do know,
yeah.
like, about 70% of people scroll past sponsored ads and go straight to organic listings because they don't want to be sold to. So yeah, there could be a handful of people that are scrolling right past AI because they're like, I don't believe you, and going somewhere else. So that would definitely be interesting. We'll follow up in the show notes and see if there's a stat on that one. Awesome. Well, Eden, do you have any other closing tips, takeaways for anyone who's sitting here, like, listening to this episode, really having the motivation to, like, jump into blogging, or get back to it? Do you have anything else you want to say to them?
Yeah, I think with all the noise out there, it's easy to convince yourself that you just need to publish something for the sake of publishing something, but it's really about the quality of what you're putting out there. If you're just posting fluff or something from copy pasted from AI, like, it's not going to perform very well because you're not writing with your audience in mind. So it's better to write a really good article, even if it's once a month or once a quarter, than just posting random stuff out there every week. So I know that blogging can be overwhelming. I totally get it. I know that it takes time and thought to put high quality content out there, but that is really the best way to improve your SEO rankings and your website traffic, is just high quality, high quality, high quality. So I also have a free content calendar to help you keep track of all of those ideas from brainstorming with friends over coffee or over Zoom. That'll help you just make sure your ideas, you can track them from brainstorming all the way to publishing. So I will link that in the show notes for you guys.
Awesome.
And yeah, hopefully that helps you, and hopefully this episode was helpful for you too.
Yay, awesome. Thank you so much. Eden is always our go-to recommendation when it comes to content creation, for our clients. And obviously we trust her with her whole heart. She's worked on our business for years. I don't even know exactly how long, but if you go to the Duo blog, that is the genius that helps us make it all happen. So we highly recommend, if you are looking to outsource this, definitely check out Eden. Everything will be in the show notes and she'll be the one to write it. So, you can just check out all of that. Awesome. Well, can you tell everyone where they can go to find you?
Yeah, my website is mavenmadecopy.com, and then you can find me, same thing, on Instagram, Maven Made Copy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
Love
much,
it.
Eden.
Thank you. I'll talk to you guys later.
If you liked this episode, please be sure to share it with a friend and subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes dropping every Monday. Plus, if you haven't already, please leave us a review and don't hesitate to share any new episode ideas. We love hearing from you and creating this content for you. See you next week.